The wind whipped dust across the auction platform as Zara Stevens clutched her threadbare shawl tighter around her shoulders, heart pounding like a stampede as she faced the jeering crowd. At 25, she never imagined she'd be standing on an auction block in Dodge City, Kansas, in the spring of 1878, being sold to the highest bidder to settle her late husband's debts. "What we have here, gentlemen, is the widow Stevens," bellowed Amos Pratt, the auctioneer whose bushy mustache twitched with each syllable. His voice carried across the town square where dozens of men had gathered, some curious, others with darker intentions. A woman proven barren after 5 years of marriage, worthless for breeding, but I suppose she could cook and clean for any man needing household help. Zara flinched at the public declaration of her most private shame. Her late husband Barren had never let her forget her failure to provide him children, and now this cruel man was using it to drive down her value. Tears threatened, but she held them back. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. "Starting bid is $10 for 3 years of indentured service," Pratt announced, scanning the crowd. "Who'll give me $10? A few men laughed. Others called out crude comments that made Zara's cheeks burn with humiliation. No one raised a hand. $5 then," Pratt amended, his voice tinged with annoyance. "Surely she's worth $5 to someone." $2. A voice called from the back, followed by more laughter. Zara's knees weakened. Her life was worth less than a decent pair of boots. $2, Pratt repeated with disgust. "Do I hear 3? Every penny I have." The declaration silenced the crowd. Heads turned toward a tall man pushing through the gathered onlookers. Zara caught her breath as he stepped into the clearing before the platform. His dark hair fell in waves to his shoulders beneath a worn Stetson, and several days' worth of stubble shadowed his jaw. His clothes were trail-worn but clean, the leather vest and duster marking him as a cattleman or rancher. "I beg your pardon," Pratt sputtered. "I said, I bid every penny I have." The stranger's voice was deep and steady as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a leather pouch, which he tossed onto the platform with a heavy clink. $217.35. Everything I earned on this cattle drive." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. That was more money than most men in Dodge City saw in 6 months. "You're offering all that for her?" Pratt looked between the pouch and Zara with obvious confusion. "I am." The stranger's eyes finally met Zara's, and something in his gaze made her heart skip. "Because she's not worthless, she's priceless." Pratt's face reddened. "Now see here, Mr. Travis Jordan," the stranger supplied, not breaking eye contact with Zara, "and my bid stands." "But she can't have children." "That's not for you to declare," Travis replied, a dangerous edge to his voice. "Do you accept my bid or not?" The crowd had gone silent, all eyes fixed on the drama unfolding. Pratt looked around nervously, then down at the pouch of money. Zara could see the calculation in his eyes. This was far more than he'd expected to get for her. "Sold," he finally announced, snatching up the pouch. "She's yours, Mr. Jordan." Zara's heart pounded wildly as Travis approached the platform and offered his hand. She hesitated only a moment before taking it, his calloused palm warm against her cold fingers as he helped her down. "Why?" she whispered, searching his face for some explanation. "Let's get away from here first," he murmured, leading her through the parting crowd. "We can talk after." They walked in silence until they reached a small cafe at the edge of town. Travis held the door for her, and Zara stepped inside, grateful to escape the curious stares. He guided her to a table in the corner and signaled to the waitress for coffee. "You didn't answer my question," Zara said once they were seated. "Why would you spend everything you have on a stranger?" Travis removed his hat, setting it on the empty chair beside him. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes that spoke of long days under the sun. She guessed him to be in his early 30s. "You remind me of someone," he said finally. "Someone who deserved better than she got." "Who?" "My sister. She was married to a man who treated her like property, valued her only for what she could give him." His jaw tightened. "When she couldn't have children, he made her life hell until the day she died." Zara's throat tightened with sympathy. "I'm sorry about your sister. So am I." Travis nodded thanks to the waitress who delivered their coffee. "When I saw you up there, heard what that auctioneer was saying, I couldn't walk away. So you spent every penny you have." Zara wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "What happens now? What do you expect from me?" "Nothing." The answer was so immediate and firm that Zara blinked in surprise. "The papers you'll sign will state 3 years of service, but I have no intention of holding you to that. I have a small ranch about 2 days' ride from here. You're welcome to stay there, work if you want to earn your keep, but you're free to leave whenever you choose." Zara studied him, looking for the catch, the hidden motive. Men didn't do things like this without expecting something in return. "I don't understand. I don't much care for seeing people treated like they're worthless," Travis said simply. "The rest is up to you." Zara took a sip of her coffee, using the moment to gather her thoughts. She had nowhere else to go, no family, no money. Her husband's creditors had taken everything after his death 6 months ago. She'd been working at the local hotel, but the owner's wandering hands had forced her to quit. With no references and limited options for a woman alone, she'd been unable to pay her rent. The indentured service auction had been the final humiliation. "I'll come to your ranch," she decided. "I can cook and clean, and I know how to garden. I'll earn my keep." Something that might have been relief flickered in Travis's eyes. "Good. We'll leave tomorrow morning if that suits you. Do you have belongings to collect?" "Just a small bag at the boarding house. They've probably put it out on the street by now. We'll check. If not, we can get you what you need before we leave town." For the first time in months, Zara felt a tiny spark of hope. Whether this man was truly as decent as he seemed or not, at least she wasn't being sold to one of the leering men from the crowd. She had time to figure out her next move. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for the bid, but for what you said about me being priceless. Even though we both know that's not true." Travis's expression became serious. "Every human life has value, Mrs. Stevens. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something." "Zara," she corrected. "Please call me Zara. Mrs. Stevens died with my husband." Travis nodded. "Zara, then." They finished their coffee, and Travis paid the bill from a few coins he'd apparently kept separate from the pouch he'd given the auctioneer. Then they walked to the boarding house where Zara had been staying. To her relief, her bag was still there, though the landlady made it clear she wasn't welcome to return. Travis arranged for a room at the hotel for Zara, insisting on a separate room for himself down the hall. "Get some rest," he told her. "We'll start early tomorrow." That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in weeks, Zara stared at the ceiling and wondered what fate had in store for her. Travis Jordan seemed genuine in his kindness, but she'd learned the hard way that men could change once they had what they wanted. Still, a small ranch outside of town sounded peaceful compared to the life she'd been living. She fell asleep thinking of Travis's words on the auction platform. Priceless. No one had ever called her that before. Dawn had barely broken when Travis knocked on her door the next morning. Zara had been awake for an hour, washing with the cold water from the pitcher and putting on her cleanest dress. She opened the door to find him standing with a parcel in his hands. "Good morning," he said. "I hope you slept well." "Better than I have in some time," she admitted. He handed her the parcel. "I took the liberty of getting you a few things for the journey, nothing fancy but practical." Inside, Zara found a sturdy pair of riding boots, thick woolen socks, leather gloves, and a warm coat that would be more suitable for traveling than her threadbare shawl. She looked up at him in surprise. "How did you afford this after yesterday?" A slight smile touched his lips. "I may have exaggerated my complete destitution. I kept enough for supplies and emergencies." Zara felt a flush of gratitude mixed with wariness. "Thank you. I'll repay you. No need. Consider it part of your wages in advance." He gestured to the parcel. "There's a small bag of hard candy in there, too. The trail gets monotonous." The thoughtfulness of the gesture struck her more deeply than the practical items. Her husband had never once considered her comfort or preferences. They ate a hearty breakfast at the cafe, then Travis led her to the livery stable where two horses waited. One was a sturdy bay gelding, clearly Travis's personal mount. The other was a gentle-looking dun mare. "This is Honey," Travis said, patting the mare's neck. "She'll take good care of you if you do the same for her. Have you ridden before?" "Yes, though it's been some time." Zara approached the mare, who nickered softly and nudged her shoulder. Despite everything, she smiled. "She's beautiful. She's yours while you're at the ranch." "I've been looking for a good horse for the household anyway." With her few belongings secured and wearing her new coat and boots, Zara mounted Honey with only a little assistance from Travis. They rode out of Dodge City as the town was coming to life, attracting curious stares from early risers who had witnessed the auction the day before. Zara kept her head high. Let them stare. She was no longer being sold like cattle. The first day's ride was long but not grueling. Travis set a steady pace, occasionally pointing out landmarks or sharing stories about the region. He was surprisingly easy to talk to, answering her questions about the ranch and asking a few of his own about her life before Dodge City, though he never pressed when she was reluctant to share. By late afternoon, Zara's muscles were protesting the unaccustomed activity. Travis noticed her discomfort and called a halt near a small creek. "We'll camp here tonight," he decided. "It's a good spot with water and shelter." He helped her dismount, his hands strong and steady at her waist. Zara winced as her feet touched the ground, her legs stiff from the day's ride. "Sore?" Travis asked sympathetically. "A bit," she admitted. "It's been years since I've ridden all day. Walk around a little while I set up camp. It'll help with the stiffness." Zara did as he suggested, stretching her legs and back as she watched him efficiently unpack the horses and start preparing their campsite. He worked with the practiced ease of a man accustomed to life on the trail. "Can I help?" she asked after a few minutes. "If you're feeling up to it, you could gather some firewood. Stay within sight of the camp, though." Zara collected an armful of dry branches and sticks, grateful for the simple task that let her feel useful. By the time she returned, Travis had laid out bedrolls on opposite sides of where the fire would be and was unpacking food supplies. They worked together to build the fire, and Travis prepared a simple meal of beans, salt pork, and biscuits he'd packed from town. As darkness fell, they sat by the fire and ate in comfortable silence. "Tell me about your ranch," Zara said finally. "What's it like?" Travis poked at the fire with a stick. "It's small compared to some spreads, about 800 acres with a decent house my father built. I run about 200 head of cattle, more in good years. There's a garden plot my mother used to tend, though it's gone mostly wild since she passed. And you live there alone. There's Miguel, who helps with the cattle. He has a small cabin on the property, and Mrs. Gunderson comes in twice a week from the nearest town to help with cleaning, but she's getting on in years." Travis looked up at her. "That's part of why I thought you might fit in. There's plenty of honest work if you want it." "I'm not afraid of work," Zara said. "It's being at someone else's mercy that frightens me." Travis nodded slowly. I understand that. At the ranch, you'll have your own room with a lock on the door. You come and go as you please. I meant what I said about you being free to leave whenever you choose. Why are you being so kind to a stranger? Maybe I'm just tired of seeing people treat each other poorly, he replied. Or maybe I'm selfishly hoping you'll revive my mother's garden and cook something that doesn't taste like leather and salt. That drew a genuine laugh from Zara, the first in longer than she could remember. The sound seemed to please Travis, whose eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled in response. As they prepared for sleep, Travis made a point of staying on his side of the fire, giving her privacy to ready herself for bed. Zara appreciated the consideration, even as she wondered how long such respectful treatment would last. In her experience, men eventually showed their true colors. The next morning dawned clear and cool. Zara woke to find Travis already up, tending the horses and restarting the fire for coffee. Her muscles protested even more than the previous evening, but she forced herself to rise and fold her bedroll without complaint. Sleep well? Travis asked, handing her a tin cup of strong coffee. Well enough, she answered, warming her hands around the cup. And you? I always sleep better under the stars than in town. He nodded toward the sunrise, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Worth waking up for, isn't it? Zara followed his gaze, taking in the spectacular colors. It is beautiful. They ate a quick breakfast of leftover biscuits and jerky before packing up camp and continuing their journey. The second day's ride was more challenging as they left the flatter plains and entered more rugged terrain. Zara's body ached, but she kept pace without complaint, determined not to be a burden. By mid-afternoon, Travis pointed to a distant line of trees. That's Willow Creek, which runs through my property. We're almost home. The word home caught Zara off guard. She hadn't had a real home since before her marriage. Barren had moved them frequently, always chasing the next opportunity, the next scheme. Their lodgings had been temporary at best, squalid at worst. As they rode closer, the ranch came into view. The main house was larger than Zara had expected, a solid two-story structure built of logs and stone with a wide porch wrapping around the front. A barn and several outbuildings stood nearby, and in the distance, she could see cattle grazing on the rolling grassland. It's lovely, she said, genuine appreciation in her voice. It needs work, Travis replied, though she could hear the pride in his voice. But it's home. A middle-aged Mexican man emerged from the barn as they approached. He raised a hand in greeting. That's Miguel, Travis explained. Been with the ranch since my father's time. Best horseman I've ever known. They dismounted near the house, and Travis made quick introductions. Miguel greeted Zara with polite reserve, offering to take care of Honey while Travis showed her the house. Inside, the main floor consisted of a large kitchen with a massive hearth, a dining room, and a comfortable sitting room with bookshelves lining one wall. Upstairs were 4 bedrooms, one of which Travis indicated would be hers. My room is at the other end of the hall, he said, pushing open the door to a pleasant room with a bed, dresser, and small writing desk. This was my sister's room. I think you'll be comfortable here. Zara stepped inside, surprised by the feminine touches that remained curtains with embroidered edges, a colorful quilt on the bed, a small vase on the windowsill. It's beautiful. Are you sure you want to give up your sister's room to a stranger? Rebecca would have wanted someone to use it, Travis said simply. It's been empty too long. He left her to settle in, carrying her bag up for her, and then excusing himself to check on the ranch operations after their absence. Zara sat on the edge of the bed, running her hand over the soft quilt, still processing the dramatic change in her circumstances. 2 days ago, she'd been standing on an auction block being called worthless. Now she was in a comfortable home with a man who treated her with respect she hadn't experienced in years. It seemed too good to be true, which made her wary. Life had taught her that good fortune rarely came without a price. Still, as she unpacked her meager belongings and washed the trail dust from her face and hands with the water Travis had brought up for her, she allowed herself a small measure of hope. Perhaps here, in this peaceful place, she could find a way to rebuild her life. By the time she came downstairs, Travis had returned and was in the kitchen, examining the contents of the pantry with a critical eye. "Mrs. Gunderson left us some stew," he said when he noticed Zara. "It won't be as fresh as yesterday, but it'll save us cooking tonight. There's bread too, though it's a bit stale." "I can help with the cooking from now on," Zara offered. "It's the least I can do." "I won't turn down the offer," Travis admitted with a smile. "I can manage, but I'm no cook. The cattle don't seem to mind my cooking, but people tend to be pickier." They shared a simple dinner at the kitchen table, the stew surprisingly good despite being reheated. Afterward, Travis showed her around the rest of the house and the immediate grounds, pointing out the garden plot which, as he'd warned, had gone wild with weeds. "My mother used to grow vegetables and herbs here," he said, looking at the overgrown space with a touch of sadness. "I've tried to keep it up, but between the cattle and the other ranch work—" "I could bring it back," Zara said, already mentally planning what would need to be done. "It's good soil and the location gets plenty of sun." "I'd appreciate that." Travis looked genuinely pleased at the prospect. "Make a list of any seeds or tools you need. I'll get them next time I go to town." As twilight deepened into night, they returned to the house. Travis lit lamps in the main rooms, then showed Zara where everything was kept in the kitchen so she could help herself if she needed anything during the night. "I rise early," he told her, "but you're welcome to sleep in tomorrow if you need rest after the journey. There's no schedule you need to keep to." The idea of not having a strict schedule imposed on her was another novel concept. Barren had been rigid about mealtimes and household tasks, expecting everything to be done on his timetable regardless of Zara's needs or health. "Thank you," she said. "But I'm used to early mornings. I'll be up to make breakfast." Travis nodded, seeming neither surprised nor disappointed by her choice. "Then I'll bid you good night, Zara. Sleep well." "Good night, Travis." As she climbed the stairs to her room, Zara found herself wondering again at the strange turn her life had taken. The room was comfortable, the bed soft when she climbed into it after changing into her nightgown, and for the first time in months, she fell asleep without fear of what the next day might bring. The following weeks established a routine that gradually put Zara more at ease. True to his word, Travis never entered her room, always knocked before approaching her when she was working alone, and treated her with consistent respect. He was often busy with ranch work, leaving at dawn and returning tired in the evenings, but he always took time to ask about her day and seemed genuinely interested in the progress she was making with the house and garden. Zara found purpose in bringing order back to the home that had clearly been neglected in the feminine touches that make a house comfortable. She scrubbed floors, washed linens, polished furniture, and organized cupboards. In the garden, she spent hours pulling weeds, turning soil, and planting the seeds Travis had purchased for her on his first trip to the nearby town of Cedar Springs. Mrs. Gunderson, a robust widow in her 60s with iron-gray hair and strong opinions, came twice a week as Travis had said. Initially suspicious of Zara's presence, she gradually warmed to her as she saw the improvements being made to the house. "Been telling him for years he needs a woman's touch around here," Mrs. Gunderson commented one day as they worked together kneading bread dough. "His mother would have had fits seeing how he was living, God rest her soul." What was she like? Zara asked, curious about the woman who had created the home she was now helping to restore. Sarah Jordan was a fine woman, gentle but strong, like good steel wrapped in silk. Loved her garden and her children something fierce. Mrs. Gunderson shaped her dough into a loaf with practiced hands. Broke her heart when Rebecca married that awful Spencer man and moved away. Then when Rebecca died, she shook her head. Sarah wasn't the same after that, passed within the year. And Mr. Jordan, Travis's father, William died 3 years before that, thrown from a horse during a thunderstorm. Travis was just 25 when he took over the ranch. Did a fine job of it too, considering. Zara absorbed this information, slowly building a picture of the family who had lived in this house before her. It helped her understand Travis better, his quiet strength, his respect for women, his solitary nature that nevertheless seemed to crave connection. As April turned to May and the weather warmed, the garden began to flourish under Zara's care. The first tender shoots of beans, carrots, and lettuce appeared in neat rows, and the herb section near the kitchen door released fragrant scents when she brushed against the plants. Travis often paused on his way in from the fields to admire her work, sometimes bringing her wildflowers he'd found while checking the herd. One evening in late May, as they sat on the porch after dinner watching the sunset, Travis turned to her with an unusually serious expression. "I've been meaning to ask you something," he began, and Zara felt a flutter of anxiety. Here it comes, she thought. The change, the demand, the true price of his generosity. Instead, Travis said, "The town's holding its annual spring dance this Saturday. Would you care to attend? You've been working so hard, I thought you might enjoy an evening of music and company." Relieved and surprised, Zara considered the invitation. "I haven't been to a dance in years. I'm not sure I remember how." "It's like riding a horse," Travis said with a small smile. "Your feet will remember once the music starts." "You dance then?" she asked, trying to picture this quiet, reserved man twirling partners around a dance floor. "Not well, but I can manage not to step on too many toes." His eyes crinkled with self-deprecating humor. "You don't have to accept. I just thought you might like a change of scenery." The idea of an evening of music and perhaps the chance to meet other women from the area was appealing. "I'd like to go," she decided, "though I don't have anything appropriate to wear to a dance." Mrs. Gunderson mentioned that. "She says her daughter left some dresses that might fit you when she married and moved to Denver. She's bringing them tomorrow for you to look at if you're interested." The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched Zara deeply. "That's very kind of her, and of you to arrange it." Travis shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed. "It was her idea. I just didn't discourage it." The next day, Mrs. Gunderson arrived with a large bundle wrapped in brown paper. Inside were 3 dresses, all gently worn but still in good condition. One in particular caught Zara's eye, a sky blue cotton with delicate white embroidery at the collar and cuffs. "That was Lewis's favorite," Mrs. Gunderson said, noticing Zara's interest. "Brings out your eyes, it would." Zara ran her fingers over the soft fabric. "Are you sure she wouldn't mind?" "Land's sakes, child, she's got a husband who buys her silk dresses now. She'd be pleased to know these are being worn instead of sitting in my trunk gathering dust." With Mrs. Gunderson's help, Zara tried on the blue dress. It needed only minor adjustments at the waist, which the older woman quickly pinned for alteration. Looking at her reflection in the small mirror in her room, Zara hardly recognized herself. The dress was modest but flattering, emphasizing her slender waist and giving color to her face that months of hardship had leached away. "Well now," Mrs. Gunderson said with satisfaction, "you'll be the prettiest gal at the dance, I'd wager." Zara blushed at the compliment. "I doubt that. But thank you for the dress. It's lovely." You keep them all, the older woman insisted. Louisa would want you to have them. That Saturday evening, Zara found herself unusually nervous as she dressed for the dance. She pinned her hair up in a simple but elegant style, leaving a few curls to frame her face as her mother had taught her long ago. The blue dress fit perfectly after Mrs. Gunderson's alterations, and she added a white lace collar she'd found among her few possessions, a gift from her grandmother. When she descended the stairs, Travis was waiting in the sitting room, dressed in clean dark trousers, a white shirt, and a vest she hadn't seen before. He'd trimmed his beard and slicked back his hair, and for a moment Zara was struck by how handsome he was when not covered in trail dust. Travis's expression as he saw her made her cheeks warm. He looked at her with undisguised admiration, standing quickly as she entered the room. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you." Zara smoothed her skirt, feeling suddenly shy. "You clean up quite well yourself." He offered her his arm with an old-fashioned courtesy that reminded her they were technically still in an employer-employee relationship, despite the growing ease between them. "Our chariot awaits, my lady." Instead of riding separately, Travis had hitched a small buggy for the trip to town. The evening was mild, the sunset painting the sky in brilliant colors as they rode the 5 miles to Cedar Springs. Zara found herself enjoying the gentle sway of the buggy and Travis's company, listening as he pointed out features of the land they passed. Cedar Springs was smaller than Dodge City, but still a bustling community. The dance was being held in the town hall, a sturdy building in the center of town. Lanterns hung from the eaves, casting a warm glow over the people arriving in their Saturday best. Inside, the hall had been transformed with spring flowers and ribbons. A small band was setting up on a raised platform at one end, and tables laden with food and punch lined the opposite wall. People greeted Travis with friendly nods and curious glances at Zara. "Travis Jordan, you old hermit." A robust man with a sheriff's badge approached them, clapping Travis on the shoulder. "Didn't expect to see you tonight." "Wouldn't miss Mrs. Parker's punch, Sheriff," Travis replied with a smile. "Sheriff Daniels, may I introduce Miss Zara Stevens? She's helping out at the ranch." "Zara, this is Sheriff Tom Daniels, an old friend of my father's." The sheriff tipped his hat to Zara. "Pleasure to meet you, Miss Stevens. Welcome to Cedar Springs." More introductions followed as people approached to greet Travis and meet the newcomer. Zara did her best to remember names and faces, though she was somewhat overwhelmed by the attention. She noticed several young women eyeing Travis with interest and wondered what they made of her presence at his side. When the band struck up a lively tune, couples began to take to the dance floor. Travis turned to Zara with a questioning look. "Would you care to dance?" Zara hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'd like that." Travis's hand was warm at her waist as he guided her into the dance. He moved with more grace than he'd given himself credit for, leading her confidently through the steps of the country dance. Zara found herself smiling, genuinely enjoying the music and movement after so long without such simple pleasures. "You dance very well for someone who claims not to," she teased as they circled each other. "I may have understated my abilities slightly," Travis admitted with a grin. "My mother insisted all her children learn properly." They danced several more times, with Zara also accepting invitations from a few other men, including the young schoolteacher and the sheriff's deputy. Throughout the evening, she was aware of Travis watching her with a warm expression that made her feel both protected and admired. During a break while Travis went to fetch them punch, an elegantly dressed older woman approached Zara. "You must be the young lady staying at the Jordan Ranch," she said, her tone friendly but assessing. "I'm Alina Parker, town council member and occasional meddler in everyone's business, according to my husband. Zara smiled at the woman's candor. Zara Stevens. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Parker. Travis hasn't brought anyone to a town function in years, Alina remarked, her eyes twinkling. You must be special. I'm just working at the ranch, Zara clarified quickly. Helping with the house and garden, MMM. Alina didn't look convinced. Well, whatever the arrangement, it's good to see him socializing again. He's been too much alone since his sister passed. Travis returned with 2 cups of punch, greeting Alina warmly. Mrs. Parker, I see you've met Zara. Are you interrogating her already? Simply making her feel welcome, Travis, Alina replied innocently. Someone needs to look after you young people. As the evening progressed, Zara found herself relaxing and genuinely enjoying the community gathering. The people of Cedar Springs were friendly and welcoming, accepting her presence without the suspicion and judgment she'd feared. On their ride home under a canopy of stars, Zara felt a contentment she hadn't experienced in years. Thank you for taking me tonight, she said as the buggy rolled along the quiet road. I had a wonderful time. I'm glad, Travis replied, his eyes on the road ahead. You deserved a night of enjoyment after all your hard work. The garden is coming along nicely, she said. We should have fresh vegetables in a few weeks. I've noticed you're good with growing things, Travis commented. The ranch feels different with you there, more alive somehow. The simple observation touched Zara deeply. For years, her husband had made her feel that she contributed nothing of value. To have her efforts not only noticed, but appreciated was healing in a way she hadn't expected. That's kind of you to say. It's just the truth. Travis glanced at her, his expression earnest in the moonlight. You've brought something back to the place that was missing. They rode in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the horses' hooves and the creak of the buggy wheels. Zara found herself stealing glances at Travis's profile, struck again by the contrast between this thoughtful, gentle man and her late husband's selfish cruelty. People seem to like you, Travis remarked as they neared the ranch. Mrs. Parker practically adopted you on the spot. Zara laughed softly. She did seem determined to take me under her wing, and she wasn't the only one watching us closely. Small towns, Travis said with a shrug. People notice things. What things are they noticing about us, I wonder? The question slipped out before Zara could stop it. Travis was quiet for a moment, probably wondering if you're more than just my housekeeper. The directness of his answer surprised her. And what would you tell them if they asked? I'd say that you're a remarkable woman who's helping restore my home, and that what's between us is nobody's business but ours. He pulled the buggy to a stop in front of the house and turned to look at her. What would you tell them? Zara met his gaze, her heart beating faster. I'd say that you saved me when I needed saving, and that I'm still figuring out who I am now that I'm free. Travis nodded, seeming to understand all that she wasn't saying. That seems fair. He helped her down from the buggy, his hands lingering briefly at her waist before he stepped back respectfully. I'll take care of the horses. You should get some rest. Good night, Travis, Zara said softly, and thank you again for a lovely evening. As she climbed the stairs to her room, Zara acknowledged to herself that something had shifted between them. The dance, the conversations with the townspeople, the quiet ride home all had deepened a connection that had been growing steadily since the day he'd called her priceless on the auction platform. The realization should have frightened her. After Barren, she'd sworn never to give another man power over her heart. Yet Travis had never once used his position to control or diminish her. Instead, he seemed determined to help her regain her strength and independence. Perhaps, she thought as she prepared for bed, there was more than one kind of man in the world. Perhaps Travis Jordan was the kind who could be trusted with a woman's heart. As spring gave way to early summer, life at the Jordan Ranch fell into a pleasant rhythm. Zara's garden flourished, providing fresh vegetables for their meals, which Travis praised with genuine appreciation. The house grew more comfortable under her care, with fresh curtains she'd sewn herself, flowers from the wildflower patch she'd planted, and bread baking regularly in the oven. Travis continued to treat her with respect, but Zara noticed subtle changes in their interactions. His gaze lingered longer when she entered a room. He found reasons to be near the garden when she was working there. Sometimes their fingers brushed when passing dishes at dinner, sending unexpected warmth through her. One hot afternoon in mid-June, Zara was in the garden when storm clouds began gathering rapidly on the horizon. The sudden drop in temperature and the oppressive stillness in the air warned of a severe storm approaching. She quickly gathered her tools and the vegetables she'd picked, hurrying toward the house. Travis came running from the barn. "Get inside," he called. "This looks like a bad one." No sooner had they reached the porch than the first fat raindrops began to fall. By the time they were inside, rain was lashing against the windows, driven by powerful winds. "I need to check the barn doors," Travis said, already turning back toward the door. "Travis, wait," Zara began, but he was already dashing through the downpour. Lightning flashed, followed almost immediately by a tremendous crash of thunder that shook the house. Zara stood by the window, anxiously watching for Travis's return. The sky had darkened to an ominous greenish black, and hail began mixing with the rain, pounding against the roof and windows. When Travis finally reappeared, he was soaked to the skin, his hair plastered to his head and his shirt clinging to his body. Zara rushed to get a towel as he stepped inside, shutting the door against the howling wind. "Here," she said, handing him the towel. "You're drenched." "Thanks." He rubbed his hair vigorously. "The animals are secure, but this is turning into a real gully washer. Might be a long night." As if to punctuate his words, another bolt of lightning struck nearby, the thunder following instantaneously. The lamps flickered and Zara jumped involuntarily. "Not fond of storms?" Travis asked, noticing her reaction. "Not these violent ones," she admitted. "They remind me of other things." Understanding crossed his face. "Your husband," Zara nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. "Barren had a temper. Unpredictable like these storms, you never knew what might set him off." Travis's expression darkened. "I'm sorry you had to endure that. It's in the past now." Zara busied herself lighting more lamps against the deepening gloom. "You should change into dry clothes before you catch cold." Travis nodded and headed upstairs. While he was gone, Zara built up the fire in the hearth, grateful for its cheerful warmth against the storm's fury. She put the kettle on for tea and began preparing a simple supper from the vegetables she'd harvested earlier. When Travis returned in dry clothing, his hair still damp but neatly combed, they worked together to finish the meal. The storm continued to rage outside, but inside the kitchen was warm and fragrant with cooking food. "The garden will need attention after this," Travis commented as they sat down to eat. "Storms like this can flatten plants." "I'll check it first thing tomorrow," Zara promised. "I planted sturdy varieties, but this is quite a blow." They ate by lamplight, the occasional flash of lightning illuminating the room in stark white before plunging it back into the warm, golden glow of the lamps. As they were finishing, a particularly violent gust of wind hit the house, and something crashed against the side of the building. Travis was on his feet immediately. "Stay here," he said, heading toward the door. "Be careful." Zara called after him, worry knotting her stomach as he disappeared into the storm once more. The minutes stretched endlessly as she waited for his return. When the door finally opened again, Travis staggered in, supporting a dripping wet Miguel, whose face was streaked with blood from a cut on his forehead. Miguel's cabin roof partially collapsed, Travis explained as Zara rushed to help. He was trying to reach the main house when a branch caught him. They helped Miguel to a chair by the fire. Zara quickly fetched clean cloths and water, along with the small medical kit Travis kept in the kitchen cupboard. "It looks worse than it is," she assured Miguel as she gently cleaned the cut. "Head wounds always bleed a lot." "Gracias, señorita," Miguel said weakly. "The roof, it came down so fast." "You'll stay here until we can repair it," Travis said firmly, handing the older man a glass of whiskey. "The guest room downstairs is yours." Zara finished bandaging Miguel's head, then insisted he change into some of Travis's dry clothes while she prepared the downstairs bedroom. By the time she had fresh linens on the bed and a fire started in the small hearth, Miguel was looking considerably better, though still shaken by his close call. "You have the touch of a healer, Miss Zara," he told her gratefully as she checked his bandage one last time before he retired. "Just common sense," she replied with a smile. "Rest now. Everything will look better in the morning." After Miguel had gone to bed, Zara and Travis sat in the kitchen, listening to the storm gradually losing its fury. The crisis had passed, but the rain continued steadily, drumming on the roof. "You handled that well," Travis remarked, pouring them each a small glass of whiskey. "Most people panic when they see blood." Zara accepted the glass, taking a small sip that burned pleasantly down her throat. "My father was a doctor. I helped him sometimes when I was growing up." "You've never mentioned your family before," Travis observed, watching her over the rim of his glass. "There's not much to tell. They died in a typhoid outbreak when I was 18. That's when I married Barren." She stared into the amber liquid in her glass. "He was passing through town, seemed charming and confident. Offered me a way out of a town full of painful memories. And turned out to be something different than he appeared," Travis guessed. Zara nodded, her fingers tightening around the glass. "By the time I saw his true nature, we were hundreds of miles from anyone I knew. He made sure I understood that I had nowhere to go, no one who would help me." Travis's expression was pained. "My sister's husband was the same. When I visited, I could see something was wrong, but Rebecca insisted she was fine. By the time she was ready to leave him, she was too ill to travel. What was wrong with her? The doctor called it consumption, but I sometimes wonder if a broken spirit hadn't weakened her body first." Travis's voice was rough with old grief. "Spencer wouldn't even let me bring her home at the end. Said a wife's place was with her husband no matter what." "I'm sorry," Zara said softly. "It's a terrible thing to be unable to help someone you love." Travis met her eyes, and the intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. "That's why I couldn't walk away when I saw you on that auction block. I failed Rebecca. I couldn't fail you too. You didn't even know me. I knew enough." His voice was quiet but firm. "I knew what that auctioneer was doing, diminishing your worth because you couldn't have children. As if that's all a woman is good for." The reference to her barrenness made Zara tense. It was a subject they had carefully avoided until now. "Most men would agree with him," she said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. "Byron certainly did. Then most men are fools." Travis set his glass down with a decisive click. "A person's worth isn't measured by their ability to reproduce." Zara felt tears prickling behind her eyes at his matter-of-fact defense. "Byron said I was defective, that no man would want a barren wife. Byron was wrong." Travis reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "About many things, it seems." The warmth of his touch and the conviction in his voice broke something loose inside Zara. Tears spilled down her cheeks, tears she'd held back for years of humiliation and self-doubt. "I'm sorry," she whispered, trying to withdraw her hand to wipe her face. "I don't mean to, don't apologize." Travis didn't release her hand. Instead, he stood and moved around the table, kneeling beside her chair. "Zara, look at me." She reluctantly met his gaze, embarrassed by her tears. "You are not defective," he said, each word distinct and deliberate. "You are kind and strong and capable. You've brought life back to this house in ways that have nothing to do with bearing children." Zara's breath caught at the tenderness in his expression. "Travis, let me finish." He squeezed her hand gently. "The day I called you priceless, I meant it. Not because of what you could do or provide, but because of who you are. Because every human life has inherent worth that can't be measured or auctioned." The sincerity in his voice left no room for doubt. Zara felt something shift inside her, a burden lifting that she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. Impulsively, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. For a moment, Travis froze in surprise. Then he responded, his hand coming up to cradle her cheek as he returned the kiss with gentle passion. When they finally drew apart, his eyes were dark with emotion. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," he admitted, his thumb gently wiping away the remnants of her tears. "Why didn't you?" Zara asked softly. "Because I never wanted you to feel obligated. I bought your contract, but I never wanted to own you." He traced the curve of her cheek with reverent fingers. "I wanted any feelings between us to grow naturally, of their own accord." The thoughtfulness behind his restraint touched Zara deeply. How different he was from Barren, who had taken whatever he wanted without consideration for her feelings or consent. "And what are your feelings, Travis Jordan?" she asked, her heart pounding. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Zara Stevens," he answered without hesitation. "But I don't expect anything in return. Your freedom is still yours, unconditionally." Zara placed her hand over his where it rested against her face. "What if I choose to share that freedom with you? What if I'm falling in love with you too?" The hope that bloomed in his eyes was beautiful to behold. "Then I'd be the luckiest man in Kansas." He kissed her again, more deeply this time, and Zara felt as though she were finally coming home after a long journey through darkness. When they broke apart, both slightly breathless, the storm outside had dwindled to a gentle rain, the thunder now distant and fading. "It's late," Travis said reluctantly. "We should probably get some rest." Zara nodded, though she was reluctant for the evening to end. "Tomorrow will be busy with storm repairs." Travis stood, helping her to her feet. "I'll check the garden with you in the morning. Between the two of us, we should be able to save most of it." "I'd like that." She smiled up at him, marveling at how natural it felt to plan their day together, as if they had been doing it for years rather than months. At the foot of the stairs, Travis paused, still holding her hand. "Good night, Zara," he said softly, bringing her fingers to his lips for a gentle kiss. "Good night, Travis." As Zara climbed the stairs to her room, her heart felt lighter than it had in years. Whatever happened next, she knew that Travis had already given her something precious, the belief in her own worth that Barren had systematically destroyed. The morning after the storm dawned clear and bright, as if the tumultuous night had never happened. Zara rose early, eager to assess the damage to her garden. As she dressed, she could hear movement downstairs, indicating that Travis and Miguel were already up. In the kitchen, she found Travis preparing coffee and Miguel seated at the table, his bandaged head looking less alarming in the daylight. "How are you feeling?" Zara asked the older man as she joined them. "Much better, thanks to your care, Miss Zara," Miguel replied with a grateful smile. "The headache is not so bad this morning." Travis handed her a cup of coffee, his fingers brushing hers in a touch that seemed more deliberate than accidental. I thought we'd check the garden after breakfast, then ride out to Miguel's cabin to see what can be salvaged. That sounds like a good plan, Zara agreed, trying not to blush under Miguel's observant gaze. Something had obviously changed between her and Travis, and the older man had noticed. After a quick breakfast, they headed out to survey the garden. The damage wasn't as severe as Zara had feared. Some plants had been flattened by the driving rain and hail, but many were already beginning to right themselves in the morning sun. Together, she and Travis gently raised the fallen plants, supporting them with small stakes until they could recover their strength. Most of these will survive, Zara said with relief as they finished their work. We haven't lost the crop. Travis straightened, wiping his brow. You planted them well. Strong roots weather the storm. The simple observation carried deeper meaning, and Zara found herself smiling. Yes, they do. Travis returned her smile, his eyes warm with affection. I need to ride out with Miguel now, but I should be back by mid-afternoon. Will you be all right here alone? Of course. I have plenty to do. Zara brushed dirt from her skirt. Be careful with the cabin. There might be structural damage you can't see. We'll be careful, Travis promised. He hesitated a moment, then leaned down to place a quick kiss on her cheek. I'll see you later. The casual affection made Zara's heart flutter pleasantly. She watched as Travis and Miguel rode away, then turned back to the house with a lightness in her step that had nothing to do with the beautiful morning. The day passed quickly as Zara attended to her usual tasks, though her mind frequently wandered to the previous night, the storm, Miguel's injury, and most of all, the moment when something between her and Travis had finally been acknowledged. By mid-afternoon, she had bread baking in the oven and was preparing a hearty stew for dinner when she heard horses approaching. Looking out the window, she was surprised to see not just Travis and Miguel, but several other riders as well. She recognized Sheriff Daniels among them, along with a few men from town whose names she couldn't recall. Wiping her hands on her apron, Zara stepped onto the porch as the group dismounted. We've brought reinforcements, Travis called to her, his expression both pleased and slightly apologetic for the unexpected company. Miguel's cabin needs more work than we can handle alone. Sheriff Daniels tipped his hat to Zara. Hope we're not imposing, madam, Mrs. Parker sent along some provisions when she heard about the damage. He indicated the packs on one of the horses. You're all welcome, Zara assured him, quickly mentally calculating how to stretch her meal to feed additional hungry men. Please, come inside and refresh yourselves before you start working. The men gratefully accepted coffee and slices of fresh bread before heading out to Miguel's cabin with Travis. Sheriff Daniels lingered behind, helping Zara unpack the supplies Mrs. Parker had sent additional food, medical supplies, and a note expressing concern for Miguel's welfare and offering any additional assistance needed. The town thinks highly of Travis, the sheriff remarked as he placed a sack of flour on the kitchen counter. His father was one of the founders of Cedar Springs. Good family. Yes, he's mentioned that, Zara replied, aware that the sheriff was subtly evaluating her relationship with Travis. He's a good man, Sheriff Daniels continued. Been alone too long, in my opinion, and a leaner Parker's, which is worth more than mine. He smiled genially. Nice to see him with someone who seems to appreciate him. Zara felt herself blushing. Travis has been very kind to me. MMM. The sheriff's eyes twinkled knowingly. Well, I'd best join the others. Don't want them thinking I'm shirking the heavy lifting. The men worked until dusk, making Miguel's cabin temporarily habitable while planning more permanent repairs in the coming days. By the time they returned to the main house, dirty and tired but satisfied with their progress, Zara had prepared enough food to feed them all, and had the large dining table set for the first time since she'd arrived at the ranch. "Something smells wonderful," Travis said appreciatively as he entered the kitchen after washing up at the pump outside. "Just a simple stew," Zara replied, though she'd taken special care with the seasoning and had added dumplings on top, a recipe her mother had taught her. "There's apple pie for dessert too, thanks to Mrs. Parker's provisions." Travis came closer, lowering his voice. "You didn't have to go to so much trouble." "It's no trouble," Zara assured him. "It feels good to have a full house to cook for." The meal was a lively affair, with the men sharing stories of previous storms and community efforts to rebuild. Zara, seated at one end of the table with Travis at the other, found herself drawn into the conversation, asked for her opinions, and included as if she were already an established member of the community. After the meal, the men from town prepared to leave, declining Travis's offer of accommodation for the night. Before they left, Sheriff Daniels drew Travis aside for a private conversation that Zara couldn't hear, but that seemed to leave Travis thoughtful. Once the visitors had departed and Miguel had retired to the downstairs guest room, Travis helped Zara clean up the kitchen, working alongside her in comfortable silence. "You didn't have to do all this," Travis said as they finished, gesturing to the clean kitchen and the leftover pie carefully covered for tomorrow. "I wanted to," Zara replied simply. "They came to help. It was the least I could do." Travis studied her for a moment, his expression soft. "You're quite remarkable, you know that." Zara felt warmth spreading through her at his words. "For making stew and pie, for creating a home here, so naturally that it feels like you've always been part of it." He moved closer, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "For seeing what needs to be done and doing it without being asked, for caring about people." "Those aren't remarkable qualities," Zara protested softly, though she leaned slightly into his touch. "They are to me." Travis's hand lingered, cupping her cheek. "What the sheriff said earlier." "What did he say?" Zara asked, curious about their private conversation. "He said that it's obvious how I feel about you, and that if I don't speak up soon, he's going to fine me for being the slowest man in Kansas." A smile tugged at Travis's lips. "Eleanor Parker apparently has a betting pool going in town about when I'll propose." Zara's heart skipped a beat. "Propose?" Travis looked suddenly uncertain. "I'm not saying. That is, I wouldn't presume. It's much too soon, of course." His uncharacteristic stammering endeared him to her even more. Zara placed her hand over his where it still rested against her cheek. "Travis, are you trying to say you're interested in courting me properly?" Relief washed over his features. "Yes." "That's exactly what I'm trying to say, though apparently not very well." He took a deep breath. "Zara Stevens, would you allow me to court you with honorable intentions?" The formal request, so respectful and old-fashioned, touched Zara deeply. "Yes, Travis Jordan, I would like that very much." His smile was radiant as he bent to kiss her, a gentle, reverent kiss that nonetheless held promise of deeper passion. "We should probably tell Miguel," Zara said when they parted. "He's been giving us knowing looks all evening." Travis laughed, keeping his arms loosely around her waist. "Miguel knew how I felt about you before I did. He's been telling me for weeks that I'm a fool if I let you get away." "Smart man," Zara teased, feeling happier than she had in years, smart enough to recognize a good thing. Travis kissed her forehead. "It's getting late. We both should get some rest." Though part of her was reluctant to end their time together, Zara nodded. "Good night, Travis." "Good night, Zara." He squeezed her hands gently before releasing them. "Sweet dreams." As Zara climbed the stairs to her room, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in the short months since Travis had bid for her in Dodge City. From a woman being auctioned off as worthless, She had become someone valued and cherished, not for what she could provide, but for who she was. It was a transformation she wouldn't have believed possible on that terrible day when she stood on the auction platform. Yet here she was, her heart opening to love again, in a home where she was respected and appreciated. For the first time in many years, Zara fell asleep with hope for the future bright in her heart. The following weeks brought a noticeable shift in Zara and Travis's relationship. Though nothing changed in their living arrangements, Travis was scrupulously respectful of propriety. Always saying good night at the foot of the stairs, there was a new openness between them, a freedom to express affection and to plan for a shared future. Travis began courting Zara in earnest, bringing her wildflowers when he returned from checking the herd, reading to her in the evenings from his father's collection of books, and taking her on buggy rides to show her the full extent of his land. They attended church together in Cedar Springs on Sundays, enduring the knowing smiles of the townspeople with good humor. In late June, when Miguel's cabin was fully repaired and he had moved back to his own quarters, Travis surprised Zara with an invitation to a picnic. "I want to show you my favorite place on the ranch," he told her as they rode out on a perfect summer morning. "Somewhere even Miguel rarely goes." They rode for nearly an hour, crossing streams and passing through meadows bright with wildflowers. Finally, they crested a hill and Zara gasped at the view before her. Below them lay a small valley, lush and green, with a clear pond reflecting the blue sky. Willows dipped their branches into the water, and wildflowers carpeted the surrounding meadow. "It's beautiful," Zara breathed, drinking in the peaceful scene. "My father brought my mother here when he was courting her," Travis said as he helped her dismount. "And later they brought us children here for picnics in the summer." He spread a blanket beneath a large oak tree and unpacked the lunch. Zara had prepared fried chicken, biscuits, fresh vegetables from the garden, and apple tarts. They ate in companionable conversation, watching the occasional fish jump in the pond and listening to birds singing in the surrounding trees. After they had eaten, Travis seemed to grow more serious. He took Zara's hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles in a gentle caress. "I have something to ask you," he began, his voice holding a note of nervousness she rarely heard from him. Zara's heart quickened. "What is it?" Travis took a deep breath. "When I bid for your contract in Dodge City, I promised you'd be free to leave whenever you chose. That promise still stands." "I know," Zara said softly, "but I'm hoping you'll choose to stay, not as my housekeeper or even as my sweetheart, but as my wife." His eyes, earnest and vulnerable, searched hers. "I love you, Zara. I want to build a life with you if that's what you want too." Though she had begun to anticipate this moment, the actual proposal still took Zara's breath away. For a long moment, she couldn't speak, overwhelmed by emotion. Travis continued into the silence, his words coming faster. "I know it hasn't been that long, and if you need more time, I understand. I don't want to rush you, I just wanted you to know how I feel and what I hope for." Zara squeezed his hand, finding her voice at last. "Travis, I don't need more time, I love you too." Hope bloomed in his eyes. "Is that a yes?" "Yes," Zara said, her voice growing stronger with certainty. "Yes, I'll marry you." The joy that transformed Travis's face was beautiful to behold. He gathered her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that left her breathless. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. "I know your first marriage was difficult. I don't want you to feel pressured." "I'm sure," Zara assured him, touched by his concern. "You've shown me what love should be: respectful, supportive, kind. I want to build a life with you too." Travis reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "I have something for you. It was my mother's." Opening the box, he revealed a delicate gold ring set with a single pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds. "If you'd prefer something different, we can choose together in town," he offered. "But I thought you might like this." "It's beautiful," Zara whispered, genuinely touched by the gesture. "I would be honored to wear your mother's ring." Travis slipped the ring onto her finger where it fit as if it had been made for her. "Perfect," he murmured, bringing her hand to his lips for a kiss. They spent the rest of the afternoon by the pond, planning their future together. Travis spoke of expanding the ranch, perhaps adding sheep as well as cattle. Zara shared her ideas for the house and garden, including starting a small orchard like the one her parents had kept. "And children?" Travis asked gently. "I need you to know that it doesn't matter to me if we can have them or not. You are enough for me, just as you are." Zara felt tears prick her eyes at his words. "The doctor who examined me after my miscarriages said it was unlikely I could carry a child to term. But there are so many children who need homes. Perhaps we could consider adoption someday." "I'd like that," Travis said, his smile warm. "Any child would be fortunate to have you as a mother." The sun was beginning its descent when they finally packed up their picnic and mounted their horses for the ride home. As they rode side by side, Zara glanced at Travis and found him watching her with such tenderness that it made her heart ache with happiness. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That I'm the luckiest man in Kansas," he replied simply. "And that I can't wait to make you my wife." News of their engagement spread quickly through Cedar Springs. Mrs. Parker was the first to call at the ranch, bringing a basket of preserves and thinly veiled triumph at having predicted their union. "I knew from the moment I saw you two at the dance," she declared, patting Zara's hand. "Some things are simply meant to be." The women of the town quickly embraced Zara as one of their own, inviting her to quilting circles and afternoon teas. She found friendship among them, particularly with Sarah Matthews, the young wife of the general store owner, who was close to Zara in age and similarly new to the area. Travis and Zara decided on a September wedding, giving them time to prepare while still allowing the ceremony to take place before the busy fall cattle season. Mrs. Parker took charge of the arrangements, enlisting the help of the church ladies to ensure the event would be a proper celebration. "It's the first wedding we've had in Cedar Springs in nearly a year," she explained when Zara protested that they wanted something simple. "The whole town will want to participate." As the summer progressed, Zara found herself happier than she'd ever been. The garden produced abundantly, keeping her busy with preserving and pickling for the winter months ahead. Travis continued his ranch work, but always found time to join her for meals and spend the evenings together, planning their future. In August, an unexpected letter arrived from Dodge City. Zara's hand trembled as she recognized the handwriting of her former landlady. "What is it?" Travis asked, noticing her distress. "A letter from Mrs. Winslow in Dodge City," Zara explained, breaking the seal. "I can't imagine why she would write to me." The letter was brief but astonishing. A distant cousin of Zara's late father had been searching for her and had finally traced her to Dodge City. The cousin, a Dr. James Stevens practicing in St. Louis, wished to make contact with his only living relative and had left funds with Mrs. Winslow to forward any information about Zara's whereabouts. "I had no idea this cousin existed," Zara said, bewildered. "My father mentioned family in the East, but we were never in contact with them." "Are you going to write to him?" Travis asked. "Yes, I think I should," Zara decided. "He went to the trouble of finding me. The least I can do is respond." She wrote to Dr. Stevens that same day, explaining her current circumstances and forthcoming marriage. 2 weeks later, a response arrived, along with a surprising gift, Dr. James Stevens expressed delight at finding his cousin's daughter and regret that they hadn't connected earlier. He explained that he had only recently learned of his cousin's death and had been searching for Zara for nearly a year. The letter included warm congratulations on her engagement and an invitation to visit St. Louis whenever convenient. Most shocking, however, was the bank draft enclosed with the letter. Dr. Stevens explained that Zara's father had once loaned his own father a substantial sum to attend medical school. James felt this money rightfully belonged to Zara as her inheritance, with interest for the years past. The amount $500 left Zara speechless. "This changes things," she said to Travis that evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I'll be coming to our marriage with more than just myself and my cooking skills." Travis smiled, taking her hand. "I never worried about what you were bringing materially. But I'm happy for you to have this connection to your family and something that's rightfully yours. I want to use part of it for the wedding," Zara decided, "and perhaps to buy material for proper curtains and linens for the house. But the rest I'd like to save, maybe toward that orchard we discussed." "Whatever you want," Travis agreed. "It's your money." His easy acceptance of her sudden financial independence, modest though it was yet another reminder of how different he was from Barren, who had controlled every penny and decision throughout their marriage. As their wedding day approached, Zara found herself reflecting often on the journey that had brought her to this point. The humiliation of the auction block had led, improbably, to the greatest happiness she had ever known. Travis's impulsive bid, his declaration that she was priceless when others had called her worthless, had been the first step toward healing wounds she hadn't believed could ever mend. The day before the wedding, Zara was in the kitchen preparing food for the reception when Travis came in from the barn, his expression serious. "I have something for you," he said, placing a document on the table. "A wedding gift of sorts." Zara wiped her hands on her apron and picked up the paper. It was her indentured service contract, the one the auctioneer had drawn up in Dodge City. Across it, Travis had written in bold letters, "Contract fulfilled and terminated. Zara Stevens is and always has been a free woman." "I thought we should start our marriage with this completely behind us," Travis explained. "No one will ever be able to claim you owe service to me or anyone else." Tears welled in Zara's eyes as she stared at the document. "Thank you," she whispered. "This means more than you know." "I think I do know," Travis said gently. "I want our marriage to be a partnership of equals, Zara. Not master and servant, not owner and owned, but husband and wife, building something together." Zara set the paper down and stepped into his embrace, resting her head against his chest. "I love you, Travis Jordan. And I love you, Zara Stevens," he murmured into her hair. "Soon to be Zara Jordan if you're still willing." "More than willing," she assured him. "I can't wait." Their wedding day dawned clear and bright, the kind of perfect September day that seemed created for celebrations. The small church in Cedar Springs was decorated with wildflowers and ribbons, and every pew was filled with townspeople and neighboring ranchers. Zara prepared at Mrs. Parker's house, where she had spent the night in accordance with tradition. Sarah Matthews helped her dress in the gown they had worked on together, a simple but elegant creation of ivory silk, with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. "You look beautiful," Sarah said, arranging a wreath of small white roses in Zara's dark hair. "Travis won't be able to take his eyes off you." A light knock at the door announced Sheriff Daniels, who had offered to escort Zara to the church since she had no male relatives present. "Ready, Miss Stevens?" he asked, his eyes widening appreciatively at the sight of her. "My, don't you look a picture." "Thank you, Sheriff," Zara replied, smoothing her skirt nervously. "And thank you for agreeing to give me away." "It's my honor," he assured her, offering his arm. "Travis Jordan is a lucky man, and I intend to remind him of that frequently." The short walk to the church seemed to take both an eternity and no time at all. Before Zara knew it, she was standing at the entrance to the church, hearing the opening notes of the wedding march being played on the organ inside. Sheriff Daniels patted her hand where it rested on his arm. "Deep breath now. This is a happy day." The church doors opened, and Zara's gaze immediately found Travis standing at the altar, Miguel beside him as his best man. Travis was dressed in a new suit, his hair neatly trimmed, but it was the expression on his face as he saw her that Zara would remember forever, a look of such love and wonder that it took her breath away. Walking down the aisle on Sheriff Daniels's arm, Zara felt none of the fear or uncertainty that had accompanied her first wedding. Instead, she felt a profound sense of rightness, as if every step of her difficult journey had been leading her to this man and this moment. When they reached the altar, Sheriff Daniels placed Zara's hand in Travis's with a solemn nod before taking his seat. Travis's fingers tightened gently around hers, and the warmth in his eyes gave her strength. The minister's words were the traditional ones, but they seemed to take on new meaning as Zara and Travis repeated their vows to one another. When Travis slipped the gold band onto her finger to join her engagement ring, his hand was steady and sure. When Zara placed a matching band on his finger, her heart was full of certainty. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "You may kiss your bride." Travis cupped Zara's face gently in his hands, his eyes communicating all the love words could not express, before lowering his lips to hers in a kiss that sealed their commitment to one another. The reception that followed in the town hall was a joyous affair, with music, dancing, and enough food to feed half the county. Travis and Zara moved among their guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes from everyone. Even Miguel, usually reserved, gave Zara a warm embrace and called her Senora Jordan with obvious pleasure. Late in the afternoon, as the celebration continued, Travis drew Zara aside for a moment of quiet. "Happy, Mrs. Jordan?" he asked, his arm around her waist. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied truthfully. Ready to go home, the word home filled Zara with warmth. "Yes, I think I am." They made their farewells, amid good-natured teasing and ribald jokes that made Zara blush, before climbing into the buggy Travis had decorated with flowers and ribbons for the occasion. As they drove away from town toward their ranch, their home, Zara leaned her head against Travis's shoulder, content in a way she had never been before. That night, in the master bedroom that was now theirs, Travis loved Zara with a tenderness and passion that healed the last of the wounds from her first marriage. In his arms, she discovered what it meant to be truly cherished, to be seen and valued for exactly who she was. As they lay together afterward, Travis traced the curve of her cheek with gentle fingers. "I meant what I said that day in Dodge City," he murmured. "You are priceless, Zara Jordan, and I'll spend the rest of my life showing you just how much you're worth." Zara smiled in the moonlight, her heart full. "And I'll spend the rest of mine showing you that you got the better end of that bargain, Travis Jordan," he chuckled, drawing her closer. "I already know I did." In the years that followed, the Jordan ranch prospered under their joint care. The cattle herd grew, and Travis added sheep as planned. Zara's garden expanded to include the orchard they had discussed, and her preserves and honey became sought-after items at the general store in Cedar Springs. 2 years after their wedding, they welcomed into their home a 5-year-old boy named Daniel, whose parents had died on the trail west. 6 months later, they added his 3-year-old sister, Emma, who had been separated from her brother and placed with a family in the next county. The children thrived under Zara and Travis's care, filling the house with laughter and the ranch with new life. To everyone's amazement, including her own, Zara discovered she was expecting a child the following spring. Dr. Peterson in Cedar Springs monitored her carefully throughout the pregnancy, and Travis insisted she rest more than she felt necessary. But to their joy, in the winter of 1881, Zara gave birth to a healthy son they named William, after Travis's father. "A miracle," Travis whispered, tears in his eyes as he held his newborn son for the first time. "A blessing," Zara agreed, watching her husband cradle their child with such tenderness. By the time William was 2, the Jordan family had grown again with the addition of a baby girl found abandoned on the church steps in Cedar Springs. No one came forward to claim her, and Zara and Travis didn't hesitate to open their hearts and home to her, naming her Rebecca after Travis's sister. Life wasn't always easy. There were drought years when the creek ran low and the crops struggled. There were harsh winters when they worried about the herd's survival. There were childhood illnesses that kept Zara up for nights on end, praying for her children's recovery. But through it all, the foundation of love and respect that Zara and Travis had built remained unshakable. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Travis surprised Zara with a trip back to the pond where he had proposed. They rowed out alone, leaving the children in Mrs. Gunderson's care for the afternoon. The valley was as beautiful as Zara remembered, perhaps even more so in the crisp autumn light. They spread a blanket beneath the same oak tree and unpacked the picnic lunch Zara had prepared. 10 years, Travis marveled, looking out over the pond. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday that I saw you standing on that auction platform. Other times, I can hardly remember what life was like before you. I never imagined that day that things could turn out this way," Zara admitted, leaning against him. "I thought my life was over, or at least that any chance for happiness was. And now," Travis turned to look at her, lines of experience around his eyes but the same warmth in his gaze that had first captured her heart. "Now I know that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best ones," Zara said softly. "That day in Dodge City was the lowest point of my life, but it was also the beginning of everything good." Travis reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I have something for you. An anniversary gift." Inside the box was a delicate gold locket. When Zara opened it, she found a tiny portrait of the two of them on their wedding day on one side and a miniature family portrait with all their children on the other. "It's beautiful," she breathed, deeply touched. Travis took the locket and fastened it around her neck. "To remind you always of the family we've built together. A family that wouldn't exist if I hadn't followed my instincts that day in Dodge City. Or if I hadn't taken a chance on a stranger who called me priceless when everyone else saw me as worthless," Zara added, her fingers touching the locket where it rested against her skin. "The best decision I ever made," Travis said simply, drawing her into his embrace. As they held each other beneath the oak tree, surrounded by the beauty of the land they had nurtured together, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From the depths of despair on an auction block to the heights of joy in a loving family, her life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined. The auctioneer had called her barren and worthless, but Travis had bid everything he had and called her priceless. In doing so, he had given her not just freedom, but the courage to believe in her own value again. Together, they had created a life rich in love, family, and purpose, a life that proved, beyond any doubt, that every human being possessed inherent worth that could not be measured in dollars or defined by others' expectations. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Zara Jordan knew with absolute certainty that she was, indeed, priceless, not because anyone said so, but because she had finally come to believe it herself. And that, perhaps, was the greatest gift of all.